So this video is the second tutorial in how to use Onshape, and in this exercise we're going to look at how to make Lego bricks. We're going to start by making one Lego brick, a standard 2x2, and we're going to use some new tools in this one, as well as sketch and extrude, which we've used before, and those are going to be how to create a pattern, so how to repeat the dimple and the Lego text using the pattern tool. And then we're going to, when we've made one brick, we're going to duplicate that several times to make lots of different variations. If you want to work through this, you've got the tutorial, which is the link for it is on the YouTube video in the description, and you should have it shared with you in Google Classroom. So it shows you how to start. Open up Google Chrome, sign into Onshape, and we're going to create a new document and call it Lego 2x2, just to double check that all the measurements are set to millimeters. And that's how we go about it, starting from here. Go to the Onshape menu, go to Create, and a document. I'm going to call it Lego. As you can see, I've got a few other ones called Lego in there. So we start the document with a blank page. We've got our three work planes here, front, top, and right. And if you look at our first task, we're going to create a 32x32x20 cuboid. So we're going to click top, then sketch, then center point rectangle. So click top, click sketch, and center point rectangle. Except before we do that, I want to flatten it down so I can see directly down on it. You can either right click, view normal to sketch plane, or click on top to look down at the top. Right, center point rectangle is up in here. We need to click the little arrow next to the corner rectangle. We'll get a center point rectangle. Click and drag, and then let go. And it doesn't matter how big it is, because we're going to resize these now. So without clicking, just hover over and type in 32, enter, and then this one 32, enter. Again, if like with the previous activities, if you find that you've not been able to put those measurements in at the time and you've accidentally clicked, you can always come back into it by going to your dimension tool at the top, D, click, pull out, type in 32, enter, click, pull out, type in 32, and enter. Okay. At this point, we are ready to extrude it. So we'll sign off that sketch, and then the next point is to extrude it to 20. Now, when we go from 2D into 3D, it's worth turning it either into isometric or trimetric so that you can see what you're doing. So let's put it into trimetric like it was when we started. Now we're going to go to extrude. So need to check that it's going to be a solid, not a surface. We're making a new extrusion, so that's fine. And then it's asking us for the face to extrude. So we click on our square, and you can see it's starting to pull that extruded upwards into 3D. The depth of it needs to be 20 rather than 25. So we change that to 20 and press enter. And then that is ready to sign off and tick OK. So that's our first step, task 1. Next step is to add an 8mm dimple extruded to 4mm. So we're going to use the circle, the dimension tool, and the extrude again. Now for this, we're only going to make one dimple, so we don't need to make all 4 of them. And first step, click on the top where we're going to put the dimple, then sketch and create a center point rectangle. So click on the top of the actual cuboid, not the top work plane, and then sketch. And then again, we want to look directly down on it, so you can either click on the top or right click, view normal to sketch plane, so you can see what you're doing. We'll get a center point rectangle, a center point circle rather, and then draw it somewhere in the center of this quadrant, this top left quadrant there. When you draw it, try not to lock onto anything, so it's not touching any of the lines, because those constraints can be a bit of a problem to get rid of afterwards. So that's fine. We need to make the diameter of that 8. So without clicking, just hovering over the size, press 8 and enter. Now we need to dimension it so that it's the right distance, so it's exactly in the center. So we're going to move on to our dimension tool now. So click on dimension, click on the center of the circle, and then click a vertical edge, pull out, and then repeat for the horizontal edge. And those distances are going to be 8. So we need 8mm from either edge. So we first click dimension, and we click the center of our circle, and then the vertical edge. So from there to there, click out, pull out, and then click. So from there to there, we need to be 8. Enter. And then the same again from the center of there to the horizontal line. Click, pull out, and click, and that needs to be 8. So that's exactly dead center now, so that's going to make our dimensional accuracy much better than it was before just by guessing. So now we can extrude that circle to 4mm. Okay. Again, when we're going to turn from 2D to 3D, it's a good idea to put it either into isometric or trimetric. And then we can say extrude. We're making a new extrude, not an add, a new one. Definitely a solid, not a surface. The shape is this one, not the two together. Sometimes that can cause problems, so you're just clicking on the circle. So it's the face of sketch 2. It's going to be by 4mm, and all the rest of that is fine. You can see the preview there, so that's okay. So that's task 2 now complete. For task 3, we're going to add a linear pattern in both directions, so going horizontally and vertically. This can be a bit fiddly, so just keep an eye on this box here. This has got all the settings in that you need to fill in. It's quite easy to get some of them wrong. So for this, we're going to make a linear pattern. It needs to be a feature pattern, and let's see how that works. So first thing we do, now that we're in this position, we can tell it that we want to create a linear pattern up at the top. Now the first thing to change is this parts pattern needs to turn into a feature pattern, so we change that. Then it asks us which features do we want to pattern. So it's the last extrusion that we've made, which is extrude 2. So we click on extrude 2. You can just click on the dimple actually, but we'll do it properly and click on extrude 2. Then it asks us which direction do we want to go in. So we click on direction, and we'll select one of the edges. I'm going to go for the horizontal one first. Click. So it's saying we're going to move the pattern in this direction horizontally. Now you can see that it's not positioned properly, so it's too far away. The distance needs to be 16, and that's looking a lot better. So we move down now and tell it to go into a second direction. Again, which direction do you want it to go in? Well, we use the edge of this, the more vertical positioned one. Click on that to tell it we're going to go the other way. The distance again is 16. Enter. And we need to change the instance count to 2. And you can see that looks absolutely fine. Now sometimes, depending on how you've done it, you might find that your dimples are off the shape and they will go red and they won't work properly for you. So in that case, it's probably because you're in the opposite direction has been selected. So in any case, you can click the arrow there to change the direction if it doesn't look right. Right, so that'll flip it one way or the other around the axis. Okay, and when we're happy with all of those, we can click OK, and that is task 3 complete. So to move on to the next one, which is task 4, we're going to add some fillets and dimples. Fillets to the dimples, so some slightly rounded edges. Those rounded edges are partly to make the Lego bricks easier to handle, so they're not quite so sharp on children's fingers, but it also helps the manufacturing. When the plastic gets injected into the mould, when the mould is released to allow the Lego brick to come out, if they've got sharp edges, they tend to get stuck in the mould, so to release them more easily, they tend to have rounded edges. Something you'll see quite a lot in product design. So for this, we're going to click on fillet and do the top edge of the dimples, or you can actually probably just do one of the dimples. Make it 0.2, and then we'll do that to all of the outer edges of the brick. So we go to fillet, this one, click on the top edge of one of our dimples. Now it's gone red because it's too much of a radius, so if we make that smaller, 0.2, enter, you can see now that's going to work. So I've put a radius on the top of this one dimple. Now I could make separate fillets for each of the other ones, or I could make a pattern out of that. For this, I think what I'm going to do is just go back into fillet 2, edit it, and just add some more on. They're all going to be following the same radius of 0.2, so I can click some more and add those on. It can repeat this process, can also do the outside edges. Again, if you want them to be a different radius, you might need to do it as a separate fillet command, a separate feature, but I want to keep everything at 0.2, so I'm going to now go around and click on these edges. Be careful to try and click an edge, not an entire surface, because that will do all of the edges on that surface. So we'll click that one, there, there, and there, and then finally we'll go around and do these ones. So I'm using the right click to flip the shape around, and we can even do the underside as well. Okay, so they're set at 0.2, so we'll say OK to that, and you can see we've got some slightly rounded filleted edges onto the Lego brick. The final part of task 4 is to shell it out. So we're going to shell it, which removes all the inside, all the inside of the material, leaving just the shell to 2mm thickness. So we need to flip it upside down and hit the shell feature. Select the underside of the brick, and we'll set that to 2mm. Enter, and that's done. So we can click OK. So we're done with task. Let's put that into trimetric so we can see what we're doing. So that is now task 4 complete. Final bit to do is to add a brand name. So we're going to add some Lego writing onto this. You don't have to do Lego. Make it more realistic, you can do, but if you want to make up your own name, you put your own text in there, then you can. So we're going to use the text tool, use the extrude tool. This time we're going to remove material instead of adding, and again we're going to use that linear pattern to create 4 different versions of our Lego. So we go to the top of our dimple. Now you don't have to, but it's quite a good idea to make sure that it's in the same dimple that you created your first extrusion from. So this extrude 2, that was the first dimple that I created, and then I made the pattern of it. So extrude 2, that was the first one. It's a good idea to put the logo, the Lego text on that one. So I'm going to click the top of that dimple and then sketch on it. Again, we want to orient it around so we can see what we're writing on. So either hit top or right click view normal to sketch plane. Now we're in sketch mode, so we're ready to start drawing some text. So we go to the text button, and again start from the bottom left and pull up to right. As you're doing it though, try not to make sure you don't lock onto the edges of any other objects. It can be difficult to undo it afterwards. So we're not touching anything, just pull it out, and then we can type in Lego. You might find some better fonts in there. It's up to you. Some of them work better than others. I'm quite happy with that one. It's quite good. Lego tends to be in bold and isometric, but not isometric, in italic. So we'll see how that looks. Now you can see that's quite big. It's a bit bigger than the dimple itself, so we'll have to use the dimension tool at the top there to make it fit inside the dimple. So the distance from along the length from one side to the other is 12mm. So if our dimple is 8, we need to make it fit inside there. Let's make it smaller than 8 and make it 7mm, and that should fit nicely inside. Now it's not on the dimple, so in order to move it, I can use the bottom left, but if I'm still in dimension tool, it won't let me do that. So I need to deselect dimension tool, then go to the bottom corner of my text, then I can click and drag and position that in here. Now we don't want it to actually touch the outside of the dimple because we're going to need to make a pattern, so you do need to try and position it so there's a bit of a gap between the dimple and your text. There we go, that looks nice. So we'll OK that sketch, and the next thing that we're going to do is extrude it to 0.2, and we're going to remove material and then linear pattern it. So put it again into isometric or trimetric so that we can see how it works in 3D. Zoom in on that. And now we're going to extrude, and it's solid, it's new. Sorry, it's add, not new. We click on the text, and you can see the text is gone right up into the air there. That's far too much, so that needs to be 0.2. But instead of adding, which is what it's doing at the moment, we need to remove. You can see it's sent it going down now, removing material, and then we click OK. So there's our Lego embossed into the dimple. Now we're going to repeat that same process we did with the first dimple by creating a linear pattern. So we go linear pattern. Again, remember you've got to change it to feature. The features that you're going to pattern is the last thing that we've done, extrude 3 for our text. We are going to click the direction. We'll go that way first and set the distance at 16. And we should see a preview of that. There we go. And then a second direction going along this edge, and the distance is 16, and the instance count is 2. And again, remember, if any of them look like they're being positioned in the wrong place, it may be that you just need to change the arrow to flip the direction. But that looks pretty good to me. Click the OK, tick that that's OK, and now we are done with task 5. What we would normally do is have a look at how to do some assembly. But before we go on to assembly of joining all the different bricks together, what I want to show you is how we can create lots of different type of bricks using this one as a template. So before we do anything, we might want to change the color of this one. So we'll right click, edit appearance part 1, maybe make him a nice light color like that. You might want to dump this into your portfolio at this stage, so you might want to switch off and hide all of the work planes so that they're no longer visible. Alright, and remember, you've got a few things that you can do to mess around with the appearance over here. You could put perspective view on if you wanted to. It makes it a bit more realistic, so it gets smaller as it disappears and bigger in the foreground. You can put shaded without edges, which looks really nice. And all of these sort of views, if you find a position that you like, maybe from the top or from underneath, you can hit print screen, dump it into your portfolio so that we've got evidence of our work. Now what I want to do at this stage is, let's put it back onto pretty normal view, turn perspective off, put this into trimetric. Now we're going to take this one brick and we're going to make lots of different versions of it. So first of all, let's rename this one as Lego 2x2. So to do that, you can right click on the tab and go rename. We'll call it Lego 2x2 because it's got 2 dimples by 2 dimples. So that's that one. Now we're going to use that as our template to make several more. Right click on the tab and duplicate it, and it will create another copy exactly the same as that first one, Lego 2x2 copy. What we're going to do here is start making some changes. The most simple change to make to this first one would be to change the first extrude. We had the sketch for the square to begin with, then we extruded it up to 20. Now if we right click on extrude 1 and edit it, and just half the size down to say 10, and click OK, we've made a shallower one. All the rest of the features are the same, but we've got a smaller, flatter plate. To make it more sort of realistic, I suppose we might need to make that a bit smaller, but I'm going to leave that as it is and just change the color. Edit appearance, and make that a red one. Okay, so this is now a Lego 2x2 still, but it's flat. So let's rename that Lego 2x2 flat, or something similar. And we're going to make a copy of that one. Right click, duplicate. So we've got 2 flats now. Now for this one, what we're going to do is going to keep it flat, but instead of having it 2x2, I'm going to have it going 2x4. So we look at the first thing that we drew, sketch 1, that was a square. Now if we make that bigger, so if we right click and edit it, we started out by having 32x32. Now to double the size, I'll just go into the length of that, double it to 64, and click OK. So you can see there we've got our dimples and our Lego. So the first thing that we'll do is to create more dimples. So we'll go to our linear pattern 1, edit that, and again, pretty straightforward. We just double the instances from 2 to 4 and say OK to that, and that works nicely. Now you can see we've got the Lego, but it's not positioned properly, so I'm going to need to move the original Lego text over into this top left, and then we'll change that pattern again over there. So let's find the text, the sketch that has created our Lego, and it's this one, sketch 3. All right, if you hover over, you'll see which one each one has come from. So sketch 3, if we right click, edit that, I'm going to put it into top so I can see what I'm doing. Now, don't select dimensions, because what we want to do is click the bottom corner over there and then drag that into here. Now I think I might have accidentally locked it on to the circle, so if that happens, these are constraints or locks. If that happens, you might want to try and click on it and then delete it. There we go. So now I'm released from there. Nice. So that's done. We can OK that. So now I've got my four Legos going that way. Let's go into that second pattern that we created and edit that, and do the same thing we did with the dimples, and we'll just change that from 2 to 4, and then we can see there that that's doubled them up. Okay, so that's by making a couple of changes, a pretty quick and easy way of duplicating Lego brick parts. This one we want to have a different color, so let's maybe make that blue. Incidentally, what you can do, if you want to make them sort of clear or transparent, you can hit the transparency bar there to make them more transparent, if they were sort of like glass or transparent plastic ones. Looks fine with the edges on, but it looks a bit weird. Anyway, that's enough for that one. And from there, we want to rename that one. So that's not a Lego 2x2 flat, that is a Lego 2x4 flat. And again, we can keep repeating that process again by right-clicking, duplicate, make a copy, and then click on the copy. I'm going to keep that virtually the same. I'm going to change the color of it to a purple solid. Actually, I've just noticed there's a couple of fillets missing from these, but I need to go back in and fix. So where I've got some fillets missing, let's look at our fillets there. So it's filleted those ones, so right click, edit, and you can see with the ones that it's done and the ones that it hasn't. So if we just go in and click on the 4 dimples, the new dimples that we haven't filleted, then it will add them to the list, and that's done. Alright, so I'll have to do that on here as well. Go to the fillet, right click, edit, and we'll just add those top surfaces of those 4 dimples to the list of items to be filleted. And that's done. What I don't want, I want this to be deeper, so I'm going to go to extrude 1, edit that, and bring that back to 20 instead of 10. So there we go, and then that one we'll rename as Lego 2x4, just standard as it is. So we've got 4 different bricks starting from one pretty simple one, and we could carry that on to do all sorts of different shapes. Extra long ones we could do 2x8, 2x16, 1x4. There's all sorts of different variations of Lego bricks that you can come up with just by creating the one basic template and then changing the parameters of the length and how many dimples, how many patterns it creates. Now in a later video I'll show you how to assemble these so that they're all joined together to make a construction, which is really useful because when we design things at GCSE and A-level, we need to remember that most products are made of several different components. It's not just about making one single solid object. We make lots of different parts and then assemble them together. But that's going to come later. We're also going to look at how to create other shapes like revolved shapes, but those will be in the next video. So good luck and happy 3D printing.